Hello, friends, and welcome to Worldbuild with Us, the podcast where we create fantastical worlds with help from you, our listeners. My name is Rob Hilferty, and I'm here with my co-hosts Daniel Quinn and Courtney Staples. On today's episode, we are continuing our 4-part deep dive into our long-form series, so I would strongly recommend going back and listening to the first episode. Otherwise, you'll be a little bit lost, most likely. And of course, if you want us to build your world, you can always go to our website, worldbuildwithus.com. Click the link, follow the instructions, and within a reasonable amount of time, we'll be building your world. If you want to follow us on social media, you can go to our Twitter at Let's Worldbuild. If you want to come join our Discord and chat with us in person or be part of our community about world building and all sorts of other stuff, you can do so by clicking the link in the description or on our website. And of course, if you're feeling particularly generous, you can always go to our Patreon, give us money, and get access to sweet patron-only exclusives like early episodes, exclusive episodes, and other stuff like that. And with all of that out of the way, let's dive right back into the setting that we're making right now. Everything's taking place in a big city, so we are going to explore the different districts and landmarks of the city itself. But before we get into that, I recognized, hey, what does the Godforge do? Like, I know that it makes stuff, but what does that stuff do? Like the forged will, what does that allow people to do? How is that different than like a regular metal, for example?
I think that it's being used primarily in the queue for creating the commodities, right? My first thought is that it powers the city primarily.
Right. Okay. But if the purpose, because everyone's in the queue to create something out of the forge, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what does that thing do? Because people will want to have this thing.
Oh, I gotcha. The thing that they're collecting.
Yeah, the commodity itself.
Right.
Yeah.
Isn't it solidified memories? Right?
Yeah.
Right. But what does that mean? What does that do?
I mean, I guess it would allow you to like give other people your experiences, like full on.
And play them back.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And to also like make sure that you never forget something. Like you make it this permanent object. So like you'll never forget something deeply special to you. Or maybe you want to remove something painful from you and just like chuck it in the garbage and never see it again.
Could you take it even a step further? Oh, it's true. I like the idea of throwing it away. That's kind of neat. Like, because you can permanently extract a memory and dispose of it, kind of like our game we just played.
Yeah. And maybe that memory then goes directly into the forge itself, into that like collective consciousness that's being formed.
Yeah, that's what I assume the tithing is, right? Like the thing that you give so you can forge your will into an instrument. Like, yeah, okay, I want to get rid of this memory. That's what you tithe to the city to create the thing, right? Because the benefit has to be as such to where people are lining up and waiting years. It has to be worth it.
That's what I was going to say, or take it a step further. It's not just replaying the memory. What if you can use it to go and be in that memory? Like it creates a space to explore and relive that memory.
Like a VR simulation of
something
memory.
Like that.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're creating VR. How and why is that valuable enough to give up your entire life to pursue?
Well, suppose, your wife died, right? And all you have is the memory of her and you want her back, right? This will create a wrinkle in the city that is kind of like almost drug addicted. But if I go there and I get my wife back, this memory of my wife, this object, and I can replay it and relive it, I don't have to live this life without my wife. I now am with my wife as far as my mind is concerned.
But why wouldn't you just remove the part that misses your wife?
Well, I mean, are you able to? That's like the ring, tossing the ring into the volcano. Like, are you able to do that? Like, I don't know. I don't think most people would be able to do that. They would rather be able to have her back and to not know the difference.
What I'm suggesting is that I feel like we need further justification for this commodity. It has to be like valuable, not just to the person using it, but to those around them. And I think that living memories, while a very cool idea, don't fulfill that need?
I mean, you can trade in them, though. So if I'm a person who lived a great life, right, and I don't have any problems, I'm in the queue maybe to get rid of some memory or some experiences, and it's minor. Maybe if you traded memories, you get some money back or something. Like, I could see that memory being traded on the market because it's like the memory of a rich man, and you can live this rich life that you wouldn't normally have, by buying this memory.
See, I think that's a cool idea. It's hard for me to justify like an entire city popping up around that concept. Like, that sounds like a cool cyberpunk idea. It doesn't sound like a city sprung up from this idea, if that makes sense,
I don't know. I think people will do a lot for psychological comfort and that contentment that can come with,
especially if they're poor.
Yeah, if they've like had a really shit life and they just want to experience like what it would be like on the other side, if you will.
Yeah.
So we're creating an entire city that's essentially based around a drug trade.
Well, what would you find more satisfying?
Yeah.
I'm thinking that it has to produce some because if it needs power and it's powering the city, it has to be some kind of a power source then, right? That's kind of where my mind went.
Yeah, I think that's what it actually functions as, like as a wheel. I'm thinking of it as like the engine of the city that has to keep turning. But in order to create a market, it seems like this is the way that they can finance it.
Well, no, I'm suggesting that people use the power that it generates in some way.
Of course, because they live in the city. Yeah.
Right. But I'm suggesting that like it can also do like it powers either magic or gadgets or technology in some way that you want it. And yes, you can still like, I think it might be interesting if you can either use it as a kind of relived memory, or you can use the power that it generates to do something else with it. So that way we can have both if we wanted to do it that way.
Well, what do you have in mind for what other thing it could be used for?
I mean, like it could be a power source. So it could power magic or technology or something like that.
Well, that's why I think we agree on that. Like, I think the wheel itself, by its functioning, gives power to the whole city, right? So everyone's benefiting from that.
Right. Okay. So maybe the clarification I'm asking for is what does that look like on a day-to-day level? Like, does this mean that robots are walking around powered by these, like little links of will? Like, or are there weapons that are powered by this thing? Like, what does it look like? How is it expressed? How does it manifest?
My feeling is that if it's like a nuclear power plant, like literally everything that needs power runs on it.
Okay.
And actually, you bringing up robots, like what if you could take the memory of, for example, your wife, your partner, what have you, and plug it into a robot and like have their personality be able to live with you? And it's obviously not them still. It's just your memory of them and what you know of them.
You're creating the closest thing to a simulacra. Daniel. Yeah.
Yes. Okay, I'm down for that because now you have a physical. I mean, that's another use for it, right? Like, you could certainly drug out and live the memory. And maybe if you have enough money, you can build a person out of it.
Yeah, it would definitely take resources to like be able to put something that advanced together.
Like rich people can rebuild their wife or their husband,
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, this is getting a lot more complex now, which I don't mind, but I'm like, oh boy, how does this fit in? What does it look like? Blah, blah,
because I think the uses are varied. Like, it seems like, what can you come up with knowing that you can do this,
Oh, so you're suggesting that like people can use different memories for different reasons. So like anger could be a good weapon, for example, right?
Yeah, maybe you put it in a piece of technology or a device that is now a weapon because it's full of hatred.
That's cool.
Oh, sure. Yeah, actually, that's really cool. Yeah, I can definitely support that.
Or you're a politician and you use it to enhance like your political maneuvering somehow.
Yeah, or like a charisma. You make yourself more attractive to people.
Like, I'm guessing you're getting a vessel that then can be, it's a commodity, but it's like can be used for something,
Yeah.
Depending on the memory.
I'm absolutely okay with all of this. Yeah, 100%. Okay, so I needed to get that conceit out of the way before we can continue on. So let's go ahead and dive what we were supposed to talk about. And that, especially this added context, I think can help us as we explore the city a little bit more. So Courtney, what was your district? And let's talk about it.
Mine was the city's edge, the area containing the outer wall of the city that faces the end of the world.
Oh.
I'm picturing it as like something that's been repeatedly reinforced over time. So it's like this assortment of all sorts of architectural styles and materials from the different groups and peoples who have come here, and attempts at different technologies too, like pylons that emit some sort of energy barrier, or like other kinds of experimental shields, which maybe they're powered by the stuff that we just came up with from the Godforge. And this district would, of course, have like guards, technicians, laborers, but also researchers who are observing what's beyond from probably watchtowers and like laboratory type settings, as well as adventurers getting ready for their dangerous expedition to the outside.
Yeah, that's a really interesting kind of conceit as well. This idea that, you know, as much as this kind of economy has been built around the waiting and the Forge of the Gods and everything like that, right? Like there is still this conceit that we're still on the precipice for the end of the world, and that's so cool, right?
Yeah.
So you could potentially stick around and stay forever, or it's like, oh right, I'm here in the city, so I can build a spear made of pure justice, right? Because somehow I have an emotion called justice in my culture, right? But like, you know, I'm going to go use that spear to kill the thing at the end of the world. Something like that. There, at the end of everything, there is still the end of everything, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's really cool.
Yeah, I like that. And what kind of people live in this space?
Oh, excellent question.
As far as like, because I mentioned like the roles of different people, but I mean, I guess they would also have their support groups. Like there would be merchants selling adventuring gear for those outside, but also like the laboratories and all of the equipment that they need. Libraries, I imagine, that have collections of texts on these studies that have been done. To people who have come back from the edge, from the outside, are probably there, like picturing like some old grizzled adventurer sitting in a tavern telling newcomers about his time outside, seeing all these crazy things that are out there.
Or just like cowarding out and coming back and be like, no, I'm not doing.
Yeah,
I started to see the edge of it, and I was like, that's too much.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. All right. So moving on, I suppose, Daniel, hit us with your district.
I was picturing a upscale vice district.
Of course you were. That is like your middle name. Let's be real. Upscale vice. Yeah. Daniel Upscale Vice Quinn. That's what they call you.
Yeah. So like a simple summary of it is this is a place where memories can be used to create illicit either substances or things that you can trade in.
Oh, that's super gross. Okay. Yeah, because now you're taking those memories and it's like you're shaving them down to like their purest essence. Oh, that's disgusting.
And it's specific. Now, I want to distinguish between the sort of vice den you imagine in Underworld. And so this is the vice den for the ultra wealthy and the very well equipped. So it's the white collar, drug place. It's the place where the politicians of the city or the really wealthy, famous explorers come to get their highs, as opposed to whatever the underworld is scrounging by to get their hands on. So the really egregious stuff is what's developed and sold here.
Nice.
Oh man, yeah, that's awful, and in the best way possible. I mean, that's awful.
Yeah,
agreed.
So like, I imagine your clockwork wife. There's certainly a merchant there who makes those.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. They got it. Oh.
And I'm sure that he has a drug to make you forget that she's a machine.
Daniel, why do you do this? I expect this from Courtney, not from you.
This is you guys' fault.
Blame you. We're the corrupting influence, really.
Yeah, definitely.
You gave me all the play pieces to work with.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's our fault. Okay.
I mean,
okay,
I brought
Daniel.
angels. I brought angels. That's rather pure.
I just realized, by the way, Daniel, with your advent of angels, you can literally create angel dust in your
hands.
Oh my god.
You're so totally angel dust. Oh my god.
Yes.
God knows what happens to your nose when you snort that.
I mean, you either die or go to heaven, right?
Yeah.
And I mean that metaphorically.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I mean dying literally. I mean heaven metaphorically.
Wow. That's fun. There's a lot of, terrible things that we could do there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I would say it's It's a black market, but since it's such a high collar thing, it's the kind of black market for which there is no opposition, no realistic opposition.
Yeah.
It's a monopoly, right? Like you can't fake or forge this otherwise, right?
And no one's going to oppose them because they're so well connected, the merchants and the people who work inside of this.
Right. And it's probably even like almost viewed as like conspiracies to talk about the actual stuff that goes on in there. Like people on the streets, like, there's no way they're snorting angel dust. That's ridiculous. There's no way.
Or snorting actual memories. Like, why would they do that? That's a waste.
Right.
You know what it is too? It's like people will look at your number in the city and they'll be like, that's a new person. I can scam them. Yeah, I can definitely get you some angel dust. Here, let me show you what this looks like, and it's like they take you to like the wrong part of town, so to speak. Yeah. It's like, oh, that's gross.
Because you have rich people who are literally doing lines of memories. Like, this is stuff that people would have waited years to be able to get converted into something, and they're going to snort it in 5 seconds for a brief high of your memory.
Yeah. I love this, by the way. It's so fucked up.
I'm now picturing like a crime boss who, as a display of dominance, they have the highest number in the city at all times. And I don't mean like they're closest to getting their forge, but I mean like they are the newest member of the city. So it's like, they might look at that number and be like, oh, that's a rube. But in reality, it's one of the most dangerous people who's been here the longest. It's just that for some reason, they like the idea of being the highest number, There's like some kind of like subterfuge and like, I don't know. I think that it's an interesting little quirk, or
it's like proof that they don't need the forge.
That they're above it. That they don't care about that they have all the power and stuff that they need. Exactly. Yes.
They can manipulate the queue. That's how their power works.
Interesting.
Right. Yes. Yeah. Well, okay. Normally for my district, right, I would try and stay food focused. Like, okay, this is a big city. It, has a population that it needs to support. So where does the food come from? That's normally where I go, right? That's usually where my MO kind of operates. However, I'm not doing that this time. I wanted to talk about transportation because I was thinking that, it would be really cool and aesthetic if we had, so my district, I'm going to call it Hull as its kind of colloquial term, but essentially what it is the city itself is filled with canals and gondolas. That is one of the best and easiest ways that you can traverse the city. And Hull is a district wherein people have constructed shacks and livable spaces out of the hulls of these broken gondolas. What this also represents, in my mind, is people who have come to this city and they have given up the idea of going anywhere else. So rather than try and use the ship to sail elsewhere, they have broken it down for component parts to live in or create gondolas out of. So my district is a little bit multifaceted. It is the canals themselves, but also this kind of slums area that's made up of all the broken and reused ships that have come through the city.
Interesting. And have these people given up on the queue too?
No. Okay. In fact, I think that it's these people may have. These people may have like just given up on the idea and they're kind of just destitute at this point. But the origin of it, I was thinking that like the people who came here and they're like, this is where we need to be. This is what we're going to continuously use the forge of the gods in order to prevent or start the end of the world or whatever their fucking purpose is, right? But it's like nothing else matters. Break my ships so I can use this forge and then we will go and end the world or save the world or whatever. That's kind of my thinking.
So are you picturing the city as a literal port city then?
Yes, actually.
Okay.
That's also where the gondolas come in. Like it's gondolas imply obviously like a bunch of water.
Yes.
So I wanted it to be an actual port city. Yes.
I can even see that being interpreted multiple ways. Like if this were a sci-fi setting, for example, those gondolas could be moving through, a space basically. If it were some kind of sci-fantasy, you could have the rivers be some kind of mystical fluid or ether that the people move through within the city.
Yeah, or water. It's just regular
water.
And then if it's a traditional kind of fantasy or a grounded physical place, you could have water.
Yeah, I mean, or even in sci fantasy, sci fantasy can just have a regular port, And then I think what might be kind of interesting is it starts with water. Oh, actually, you know what, Daniel, this could be interesting. So part of it's water, and then the closer you get to the end of the world is where it starts becoming something else. Yeah,
that's what I was thinking too. Like you start to get these different types of matter flowing into the water. It looks like an oil sheen or something.
Oh, sure.
I'm picturing what's the Robin Williams movie about
Flubber,
the afterlife. About the afterlife.
What dreams may come.
What dreams may come. I'm picturing if we want to make this city, paint, like if it's psychedelic in some sense, like I could see like some really cool landscapes within the city, especially since it's so close to the emanations of the end of the world.
Here's the deal. Hear me out. Okay, so maybe Hull is a little bit different as well, where it's the last place in the city where water actually exists. And then every district has its own unique take on water. So the arts district could literally be paint, right? And Daniel, because you're going in like the high-end Vice district, I imagine that it's either bong water or just straight up cum, just like a river of it.
I'm going to go for the bong water. But that makes me think of one other thing for you too, is I wonder then in their district, their water must be really valuable. So I wonder too if you can buy a bottle of water there and it's very expensive,
because it's actually water and
it's
not
actually
like
water.
Yeah, that's a good point. Sure.
That would be neat. Because I could see this old world kind of, you have a tourist go to an old world place and they'll buy a tile that it's not really valuable to people who live there, but to the outsider, it's extremely valuable,
Oh man, that's fun. That's horrible and fun. So, but I think what that really adds though is a layer of flavoring to each district where, that water is going to be made out of something else, and it adds to an aesthetic and it adds to the wonder and enchantment of the city.
I think there could also be some element of randomness to it. Like depending on what's happening outside the wall, things can shift within the city. Like an outpouring of some other kind of liquid comes in and disrupts things occasionally, something like that.
Or like what happens when the district starts to change over time. So it's no longer about X. And like that's reflective of what's going on in the water. Actually, that's kind of cool. If you have like the district say that it's one thing, but the water says it's something else entirely. Like that's kind of cool. I like that idea.
I wonder too if the people in like the white collar Vice districts are or like have the power to change stuff like that with all the resources and technology that they have. If they're like getting these memories from anybody, could they like infuse parts of the city with those memories?
Why not? Maybe they have larger apparatuses that maybe I could see them. Maybe there's closer to the engine, like the forge.
Oh yeah.
I imagine there's technology that is used to support the forge in various ways, right? But I could imagine them having taken, let's say, a giant piece of equipment that they privately own that you shouldn't be able to own, that they use to convert things, because they have the wherewithal to do that.
Oh, like they've tried to construct their own mini God Forge or something.
That's even better. That's even better. And theirs does not work the same.
Yeah, it's probably not working out so well.
What is that called? The Blasphemer's Forge or something like that? Or just Blasphemous Forge?
We like the black wheel,
Yeah. Yikes.
Break the wheel, baby.
Or they just call it the wheel. That would be kind of neat.
Oh, the wheel. Yeah, that's good. That's good too. I can't help but think of being broken on the wheel as well, which is like, do you guys know, how intimately informed are you about old medieval time tortures?
I mean, come on, Rob. Like, who are you talking to here?
Okay. Admittedly, that question was more for Daniel.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not a medieval scholar, so I don't really know much about it. I just know there's horrible things that they did in medieval times.
Okay. Breaking on the wheel meant that they would basically tie your body up to a giant wheel and then break all your bones. Like that's
that I am aware of. Yes.
Okay. Just wanted to make sure. Anyway, so I love that we've got a stronger and clearer picture of the city itself. I suppose that we need to move on and talk about our landmarks now, right?
Yeah.
So let's see. Courtney, you start us off, right? So Daniel, why don't you hit us with your landmark first?
My landmark is actually a person.
Oh my.
Daniel, you're cheating.
It does sound like he's cheating, right? Yeah.
Hear me out. So this person serves a role so the person can change, but they are, and it's connected to my vice district. They're the person that you interact with to gain access to the vice district. And you can find this person in certain places, and they're the wayfinder to the vice district and to that world if you know what to look for. Like they're the woman or the man in the red jacket, in the corporate headquarters that's always there. They're the person, in the ballroom that's conspicuous. Like everyone knows that that's the person you need to go to.
Mm-hmm. Huh. I like the idea that they're like a traveling merchant of sorts. Mm-hmm. Like they show up in random parts of the city and you can make deals with them to get access. And the deals are probably not really in your favor.
Never.
Yeah.
Can we make it so they always have the same number?
Oh, yeah. What do you mean, like number of them?
No. I mean the number in line.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Or is that the one who's always last in line?
Oh, maybe. Oh, yeah. That's not a bad idea.
Because they're rotating, like they're a job that the person fills.
Oh, it's a job. Mm-hmm. Oh, okay.
Right.
So, I mean, if that's the case, then yeah, you can just like swap it out. You know?
Like because they're an actual person, but they're just like that's the job. They wear whatever they wear to be recognizable, or whatever their call sign is.
See, that's why I think keeping it a specific number makes the most sense, because that way you know to look for, 999 or whatever it is.
It could be. Maybe it's a fake number, and that's why it can be the same, or it's a slot that the vice district owns. Like no one else has this slot.
Or it's like Missing No in Pokemon. It's just like this glitchy thing that appears over them.
That's kind of cool too.
We just talked about the Blasphemous Forge. Like, yeah, maybe their number is a different color. And it's like, because they all went through the Blasphemous Forge, everyone else is lined up to take a number from this thing. But the Blasphemous Forge, they're all like, they have a different number set or something like that. So it's like runes, like alpha, omega, epsilon, stuff like that. And so it's like, it denotes like a different allegiance, but also one that's still like, you're not going to stick out as someone who hasn't gotten their number yet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think if you separate it, because the other guys that you were talking about, they have, well, no, you were talking about the vice boss, right? Who always has the
highest number. Yeah.
Has the highest number. Is that what you're saying? Is that the one who has that slot?
No, I'm suggesting that we can make this separate kind of like deal going on,
Right. But when you were talking earlier, was it about the vice boss having a
it was
number?
I mean, I just thought that was a cool little character quirk to have. I'm not tying that to anything hardly.
Okay. Because I like the idea of the slot, because it goes back to the queue. You know what I mean? Like
that's true. Yeah.
That you had talked about before. Maybe instead of the vice boss having it, like that's their organization's slot. And it could be represented as a fucked up number, like you're saying, or a set of runes that speaks to their fake forge, Or it could be, you know what it could be? This could mix the two. So the reason why it appears as runes or weirdness is it's literally like a rolling slot number. Like think like a slot machine.
Oh.
It isn't a number. It's not one of the actual. It's like it's a number outside the queue.
Oh, it's constantly in flux.
Yeah, like it's rotating.
Oh, that's kind of cool.
Which makes it like the runes you're talking about,
Yeah. Plus, if you have it be a constantly rotating number, you're also evoking the idea of a slot machine, which is like,
yes,
yeah, that's perfect.
And you can move anywhere in the line through through these people. That's what it represents.
Yeah, that could be cool.
Skip the line, basically.
Yeah, but like not to the point where you can actually use the forge. It's not like anyone can ever be recognized.
Well, no, but that's the lure, right? The allure, the thing they're trying to sell you is the concept of bypassing the line, right? Like buying the commodities, not waiting in line because they already have the commodities. They're not going to let you're not actually skipping the line because it's impossible, but they have found a way to fuck with it,
or at least appear like they're fucking with it, right?
Yeah. Right.
Astute observers will know that the hue is just a couple of pixels off from the real one, of the color. I mean,
so, exactly. Yeah.
That's good. I like that. Okay. Not exactly a landmark, but like, okay, I can see what you mean by landmark in that case. Yeah. So Courtney, you have a location right? Or like maybe
I do, yes.
Okay, yes. Go. Courtney? What is your landmark?
Yes. So my actual landmark part of the city is tentatively calling it the Void, and it's a
Oh God,
small.
Courtney, how are you consistently the edgiest person? Like consistently.
Always.
Go on.
It's a small section where an angel had appeared early on in the growth
cool.
of the city. And it not only decimated a building that had been there, but it also changed the properties of that now empty space that seems to like nullify sound and light going into it. And entering it is like really a gamble. So sometimes if you go in, you'll return with a new ability or interesting artifact. And sometimes you just never return. You just never come out of whatever it is. So people are really wary of it, of course, and nothing can be built in that spot. A lot of people fled their homes and businesses like in that area out of fear that it might spread or otherwise endanger stuff. But of course, others capitalized on it and almost treat it as like a tourist attraction.
It's a place you want drunk people to stay away from. That's for sure.
Yeah, you don't want to fall in there.
I love that. I love how evocative it is because it's like a literal underworld.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ooh. Okay. So is that like where the canal like kind of like dips off or something like that? Is that how it might work as well?
That could be interesting. Like if it interrupted part of the canal and the water there just like disappears or goes into some kind of abyss and then reappears on the other side just fine.
Oh yeah, that'd be really okay. That's kind of cool. There's so many cool things that you can do with that. Absolutely. Yeah. All right. Do we have any other questions about the abyss?
Is there any sort of, because we said people may or may not come in and out, is there any sort of population in there that we know of? Is it like an underground or underworld, or is it literally just like a weird space?
I imagine it's just an odd space. Maybe it's like even different for everybody who goes to it.
Right.
You experience different things or yeah, I don't know. I think it could vary a lot based on who you are and what you want out of it maybe.
Oh, so it has it has an awareness of the people in it, and it has effects on the people that go through personally.
Yeah, that could be interesting. Like if it's sensing your desires and doing something with them, but it's not really like following through on what you want. It's interpreting it in some certain odd way.
I could see there being a connection to the psychical people.
Yeah.
Since, they have a connection to the angels.
Maybe if you're psychically linked with other people, like you all experience the same thing when you enter that void.
Oh, like a refracting lens or something like that. I mean, I imagine it'd be super overwhelming though, right?
It'd be a reason to go there, the dangerous reason, right? Like maybe I could see the psychics as they become aware of each other being drawn to this void because it's a place where they can have a greater awareness of the situation, they get there. But there's such a danger being in it.
Yeah.
Have full sensory overload in the best way possible. Yeah. Yeah. I can see that. Dope.
Like I said, I could see like people capitalizing on it too in like not the best ways, like people offering supposed tours of the void, and it's really just a way to get money out of people who are completely new to the city.
Yeah.
Yes. Isn't there a risk that you run by doing that though? Because it's not all, because I was thinking about this as well. It's not necessarily the best place to murder someone because they could come out with like superpowers, right? Like,
oh yeah.
So it's something that you really have to be careful about. Although I suppose the scam could be you either kill them and take their money, or you're like, oh, look, you gained the superpowers. I earned a big tip, something like that.
Yeah.
I mean, I can also see the void, it's functioning, reflecting the way the end of the world works, and that the further you venture into it, the more dangerous it becomes. So I could see getting a few rubes and a quote unquote tour of the void, and you take them in, I don't know, a block, which is relatively not dangerous, but that's where you mug them, do whatever horrible thing you want to.
Oh, yeah, because it's like, oh, how awkward is this? 2 muggings at the same time. Sorry, guys, I didn't know we were using the void today.
Exactly.
It's interesting, too, because now we've got like multiple sort of references to chance or gambling in terms of Daniel, your like slot machine forehead people.
Yeah.
And then this, which is like a sort of a chance.
Yeah, it sounds like vice is like all over this city. Needs to be purged.
Yeah.
Speaking of purged, actually, mine isn't necessarily that, but I wanted to come up with the landmark that I'm calling Beacon, because I think one of the things about landmarks is that you can use them to like navigate the city, right? For example, in Boston, relative to where you are to Boston, if you see the Citgo sign, right? Or, like which side of Charles River you're on, it's something that gives away the location, right? So I kind of wanted to create a North Star for our city here, which it's a literal floating tower that floats above the city. And I don't know how it works yet, but it is basically used by people to like keep a watch out for things. So it's an outpost, it's a watch post, it's a lighthouse. It's also like, hey, maybe, we haven't really talked about this yet, but like how this city interacts with the outside world. Like, does this city get invaded or, like besieged? Like, what does that look like, et cetera, et cetera. But I would imagine that in times of war, it would also act as a beacon, be like, oh, yo, get inside or something like that. So Beacon is what I wanted to create. It is a North Star. You know where you are in relation to Beacon at all times. If you're, an old head to the city anyway.
I like that. Are there any officials who live inside of this, or is I get a feeling of kind of like a not government, but a kind of like officialness to it?
I have this idea that there's like a somewhat more elite group of like militia who are essentially use it as like a home base to enact. Like I don't want to say police, but that's basically what it is. They're like flying cops, right? Because they can use that as like kind of not a central point, but a point where they can like go easily to other areas. Yeah, exactly.
Because I can even see like that thing having served some other purpose a long time ago, but they've set it up as like, here's a staging so we can take care of the city overall,
Right. Yeah. Or it's completely incidental, right? Like it's actually like the finger bone of an angel or something like that.
Yeah. Like it served some other purpose originally. Yeah.
Right. I love the idea of repurposed, like weird BDOs and stuff like that. So that works for me.
I'm also picturing like, they're almost like in my head right now, I'm visualizing two things: a good version of RoboCops and a good version of Judge Dredd. You know?
What do you mean good version of Judge Dredd? Yes, I was thinking that mixed with like their ability, because they have to get up there and get down somehow. So they're flying on something. Right. I don't know what it is yet, but they're flying. That's for sure.
I'm getting too in general from the setting. For some reason, I'm feeling some Dark City vibes.
I've not seen that.
I have not either.
Oh, it's like one of my might be my favorite sci-fi movie of all time. But
wow,
I think not necessarily because it has a particular noirish time period. Not necessarily the time period, but the fact that in Dark City, without giving any spoilers, the city appears one way, but it is not what it seems. So it straddles two genres. And you don't realize that till very later on, which isn't much of a spoiler, but it's important to think about. And I think this city seems to straddle those two in the same way. Like it seems like you could live in this city and not be aware of the true context in which it exists.
Interesting.
And Rob, you had also raised the question of like, if the city gets attacked, if people try to take it over, and I feel like that would happen from time to time. Like it itself is seen as a great resource because of like the God Forge and, its positioning near the edge of the world. But I can't imagine that those attempts have ever been successful for whatever reason.
Yeah. Like the great empires of history have broken their backs against the walls, or broken their spears against the walls of this city,
Yeah.
And I imagine also like, I do not see the end of the world as an invading force. If anything, we are trying to invade the end of the world. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, I guess I see the end as like incidentally, occasionally damaging the city's edge area. Because like angels are more common to appear over there, and they do crazy shit when they appear. But I don't think it's ever like an actual like effort to harm the city. It just sort of happens occasionally.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
The end of the world has just always been there. That's how it is.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
So there's like random like weird energy storms and shit like that occur.
Mm. Yeah, disastrous shit comes from there, but it's never like an invasion force of demons or something like that. Like, no, I find that to be less interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think that's it. Do we need to explore? Have any questions about how the city functions? Anything else that we need to get into before we pivot over towards next episode?
No, I would say, dear listeners and my fellow co-hosts here, please watch Dark City, because The Matrix stole the soundstage for Dark City. In fact, in the creation of The Matrix.
Really?
So we need to, okay, hold on. We need to use this as leverage, Courtney. We need to figure out the one piece of media that Daniel refuses to watch because it's on his never-ending list, much like The Godforge, actually. And we need to find a way to finagle that piece of media to the top so we can then watch Dark City.
I'm willing to barter.
Right. We need to, we'll figure this out off podcast, but we will in fact,
I'll watch something if you guys watch Dark City. That sounds cool.
All right. That's fair.
That's fair.
As long as it's not anime. If it is anime, it needs to be like top tier, like Ghost in the Shell level. Like, I don't want any of that. Nobody better be like emoting if that's going to be anime.
Emoting? Yeah. Daniel needs deadpan faces the entire time.
Guess what I liked about Ghost in the Shell? Everyone has no sense of humor and they're just like fucking stone. I love it.
Daniel famously hates fun. Yeah, it's true.
Anti-fun. Yeah.
Anti-fun. Mm-hmm. All right. All right. So I suppose where we are right now, we're at the end of this. We've created how the districts kind of work. We've created landmarks. Most of us did anyway, Daniel.
My guy counts as a landmark. But you know what a landmark is? And for those of you who live in Boston, you know the crazy homeless people that are in certain parts of the city, and you know those parts of the city because they're there. They are living landmarks. I rest my case.
I disagree. Anyway,
the guy with the guitar bear, he's not homeless, but guitar bear, he is a landmark.
No, he's not, Boston. Because he moves all the time.
Right, that's the unique attribute of this kind of landmark.
No, that's not a landmark. That's a unique personality. That's not
The word landmark. Let's see what this means.
Yeah,
landmark.
Fucking Google this shit live on air and embarrass yourself. You fucker.
Landmark. Define landmark. Says an object or feature of the landscape
okay, cool.
That is easily seen and recognized from a distance, especially one that enables someone to establish their location, or an event, discovery, or change marking an important stage or turning point in something.
Yeah, that's not that. A person
I think
is
a
not
human
a
being can certainly be a object or feature of a landscape that is easily seen or recognized from a distance. Guitar bear,
that's not an object.
When you're
People
in park,
are not objects, Daniel.
When you're in park,
I know that's how you feel about it.
You know you're in Park Street if you see a guitar bear.
That's not true. He shows up in Somerville.
You know you're in a square of Boston if you're seeing guitar bear.
That's not. No,
that is very landmarky to me.
Absolutely not.
I've heard he's a huge asshole, by the way, unfortunately.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I've had good interactions with him. I can't say that for sure, but that's why he gets beaten up all the time.
God. I don't know anything about him individually.
Yeah, I can't speak to who they are under the bear mask, but whatever. Anyway, enough Boston talk.
What if we like give the roving landmark? They're in like a wagon or some sort of like stall that they set up shop in or something like that.
No, they are individuals. They're people. They wear some distinctive clothing.
Courtney.
They can be in your party.
Courtney, just let him have it. It's okay. There's a reason I didn't fight him. There's a reason
in a ballroom.
It's okay.
Courtney. And you guys are having your fancy Christmas party, and he's there.
Let him have his ball.
Works.
It's okay.
Yeah.
That's how it works.
Yes, Daniel. That's definitely what a landmark is for sure. Anyway, that's going to do it for this episode of Worldbuild with us. Thank you so much for listening. Remember that if you want us to build your world, you can always go to our website, worldbuildwithus.com, click the link, follow the instructions, and within a reasonable amount of time, we'll be building your world. If you want to follow us on social media, you can go over to Twitter at Let's World Build. If you want to come join our real community, which is the Discord community, you can always do that by clicking the link in the description or the episode, all that good stuff. Come chat with us about what a landmark is, what isn't a landmark, for example, or, anything world building related. We'll be there to chat with you. Come share your ideas with us. That's what it's all about. Building a community, hearing from y'all. That's what we want. And of course, where would we be without our beloved patrons? Thank you all so much for your continued support. And if you're feeling particularly generous yourself, you can always go to our Patreon, give us money, and you'll get access to patron-only Discords, early episodes each week, and patron-only episodes. That's going to do it for this episode of World Build with Us. Remember that we love you very much. We're going to get through this together. Until next week.